Welcome back to Sueños to Success, the podcast where we share powerful stories of transformation, resilience, and healing. Today, I have the honor of speaking with someone whose journey is raw, real, and deeply moving. He's experienced the pain of intergenerational trauma, the hardship of incarceration, and the profound courage it takes to forgive, to grow, and to redefine what it means to be a man. His story isn't just about what went wrong, it's about how he found a way forward, how we can all find a way forward. Today we talk about trauma, masculinity, fatherhood, and healing, and we'll explore what the research says about breaking the cycle of pain to build new legacies of peace. This individual happened to be a student in my classes at UC Santa Barbara, and I'm very honored to have him here. Greg, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate
Yeah. Let's start from the beginning of your story, your childhood. What was life like growing up, especially with your father, and how did that shape the decisions you made later in life?
it. So give you a little background on my people. My father, he was born in Florida. My mom is Filipino, and she grew up in the Philippines, and they met during the Vietnam War, um, and got married, and so my mom's an immigrant here. She immigrated shortly after that. Um, and we moved to, we were living in North Carolina. We moved to San Jose when I was like 3. And we grew up, I mean, I grew up in the hood, like one of the worst parts of San Jose. So my father's white, mom's Filipino, trying to fit into this black and Latino neighborhood as an Asian and white kid. Um, didn't fit in uh, like everyone else, I guess, but sort of shaped who I was early on, making a lot of friends who were a lot more diverse than, I guess, North Carolina. And my father was an alcoholic. Vietnam was, as most people know, was very traumatic for a lot
Mm.
of people. And so he was an alcoholic, and my mom was just trying to sort of find her footing here in the States. Um, so that said, it's just just trying to go to school with a bunch of black and brown kids, and trying to fit in, and I had to work a little harder, and be a little uh, you know I guess to fit in. I had to sort of prove myself, I guess, so to speak,
Mm.
when I was young. And we moved around a lot when I was young. I think elementary school alone, we moved 5 times, 5 different
Well,
elementary schools. Yeah.
in the San Jose area.
San Jose, Santa Clara, yeah.
Mm. So you
So,
were overcompensating with the kids around you. You were like having to like show them that you could fit in.
yes. Yeah. Because, I mean, and I don't know if it's the same for all of the kids there. That was just my experience, but it
Mm.
it felt like that. It felt like I was kind of
What's an example of that? Like,
um just being made fun of, or you can't come with this, or if you want to come with us when we're going to go do something, you have to do this thing. You have to, I don't know, break a window, or yeah, it didn't feel like, it felt like I had to prove myself sort of to fit in when I was younger.
mm.
So yeah,
So you're growing up. You got this alcoholic dad.
sure.
You got this environment where the kids are like, "Hey, you're not one of us, and if you want to be one of us, you got to be harder."
Yes.
And then how does that um, affect you as you're going into, say, high school?
So yeah, going into high school. So now, and again, we continued to move. So going into a high school, like, it wasn't the neighborhood that I grew up in, so all the kids are new. So now I don't fit in with sort of the smarter kids, the kids, the kids who aren't getting in trouble, so to speak. I gravitate more toward the kids who are sort of outcasts themselves, and and was sort of welcomed into that group. But it's sort of the same thing, right? You kind of have to sort of prove yourself, and that's when I started to get in trouble. I think the first time I got into trouble uh, was more like in the 8th grade. Spray painting was the first time I sort of got in trouble with law enforcement. I didn't go to juvenile hall or anything then. But that sort of led to stealing and robbing to sort of get money. Um, and the first time that I actually uh, had a run in with law enforcement where I went to juvenile hall was I stole some action figures, and we were selling the action figures to get money at this comic book store. And
Where'd you steal the action figures from?
Toys R Us.
You go
Yeah.
to Toys R Us with a crew?
Yeah, we'd go with a bunch of people, and we'd all hop on the bus. We would sort of have our little route. We'd stop at like Walgreens. We would take a bunch of cigarettes and candy or whatever, and then we'd go to like the mall and then Toys R Us. And Toys R Us was like for the cash because we knew we can sell them to the comic book store for money. And me and this other kid went in and grabbed a few action figures. And when we were leaving, there was a guy outside, and he told us to stop, and we both ran different directions. And he chased me, um, and caught up to me, and we fell down, and some other people in a crowd of people. And so, because someone was also involved and fell down, just a regular citizen, it was deemed a little more serious, and they took me to juvenile hall.
So that's
So
your first time.
that was my first time.
What was the reaction of your parents?
My father was of the opinion that they should leave me there, which is what they did. He said, he needs to learn his lesson. Let's leave him in juvenile hall for however long they want to keep him. And so, yeah, I went to juvenile hall. It was a very strange experience. When you're just so small, and it's your first time, and you go into this sort of dark, sort of dank place, and they strip you down, make you get naked. Um, Never been naked in front of another adult before, so there was that. Um, it was just traumatic. And then they give you clothes that aren't yours, and you're putting them on. They're stained. Um, and then they put you in a room and lock it, and it's a cell, and you're just in there, and you can't leave.
Mm.
And you don't know what's happening. You don't know when you're going to go eat. You don't know when they're going to let you out. And you're just, and then you see all of these other kids there, and they look rough, like, and so it was that was my first experience in juvenile hall, and first of many.
Did your relationship with your father change after you did some time that first time?
Um, no, I think it was the same. My father was pretty distant, so um, I didn't really connect with my father a lot when I was young. Um, he worked all the time. He drank a lot. Um, so I didn't really interact with him a lot. When I got in trouble, he grounded me for a very long time, where he beat me. Um, the beating started when I was young. I started cutting school when I was like 10 years old,
Mm.
just so that I didn't have to go into school with marks, and people would question me about, what happened, um, why I have the marks. It's actually why he stopped beating me is when I was 12 in juvenile hall, or I'm sorry, 8th grade at junior high. I went into school with a black eye,
Mm.
and one of the teachers asked what happened, and I just told him, and, my dad, I got in trouble, and she told me that I needed to have him come in so that she can talk to him. And when he came in and talked to her, I don't know what the conversation was about, but I know that he never hit me again. He never,
Mm.
yeah, abused me after that. But that's kind of when the verbal abuse started. Then it was more, he had to sort of change it up, you know, to whatever way he knew how to sort of, I guess, get to me.
Did you feel like when you're getting disciplined physically, you felt like, man, this is just like normal part of life. This is what happens.
Yeah, I thought that it was. I thought everybody was going through that, and just nobody talked about it. I assumed that's what it was, and yeah, I assumed it was. Sort of. I don't want to jump around too much, but I thought my brother and sister were also getting the same thing, but they weren't, because my brother is my dad's stepson, and my sister is, I guess, is a little girl, and he didn't, feel like he could do that to her. And I didn't find this out until years later, until I was an adult talking to them, like, what was it like when, dad would spank us? What did you, did he, Did he make you pull your pants down and hit you with the belt?" And like, he didn't touch us. And I
Mm.
was just blown away. But that fed into the idea that I was the defective one,
Yeah.
that there was something wrong with me, you know?
So you always felt that way. So probably sometimes, like I was physically beaten by my mom and my stepdad. It, my stepdad would like kick me with his cowboy boots. My
Mm,
mom would like beat me with extension cords. I had her here on one of the podcasts talking about sort of how kind of what she was going through in life. But there was moments where she would like verbally say stuff,
mm.
and that would hurt me the most. Like, there's a moment where she's like, "I'm a little kid, I break a glass on accident," and she's like, "You dumb," and then, of course, every bad word,
Mhm.
and then she says, I should have aborted you,"
Oh,
and I remember that hurt more in the long run than, uh, any beating she ever gave me. When he started verbally abusing you, was this like a moment of like, man, like this is making me feel like I'm the broken one. I'm the messed up one.
yeah. When he started verbally abusing me, um, he would he definitely it made me feel broken. He would convince me that there
Mm,
was it wasn't just you're stupid, you're dumb. What's wrong with you? Um, he would want me to say it to him. He would, what's wrong with you? Are you stupid? And I would reply, no, no, I'm not stupid. And he would say, well, stupid people or smart people don't do the things that you're doing. So you must be stupid. So what is it? Are you stupid? And that would go on until I agreed with him and said, okay, yeah. So he convinced me over
whoa.
years. I was convinced that there was something wrong with me.
So in this case, stupid. You're stupid. I am stupid. I am stupid.
Hmm.
And then you started to act out stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Wow.
then I would hide it. I would hide the fact that there was something wrong with me. It
Mm,
started early, like sort of, I didn't want people to discover or find out that there was something wrong with me. So I learned early on how to hide it, or I thought I was hiding something. Um, and it just that stayed with me for years. That
mm,
stayed with me for years, even into adulthood.
wow.
Yeah.
So you're going on this journey. Start getting in trouble. You go to juvie. That you know, even though it was a messed up environment, it still kind of didn't teach you a lesson. Let's say it's just they just put you. You got your father abusing you, then you go to this kind of messed up environment. You come out. Do you straighten up a little bit, or do you continue on that road?
Well, when I got out the first time, now I'm on probation, and instead of being treated like a child who's in crisis, who's abused. Obviously, something was going on. If I'm stealing, um, I was treated more like a criminal. Like I was criminalized. I was. They would search my backpack when I went to school. They would come to my house and go into my room. The police, and it just felt like it just kind of reinforced that there was something wrong with me because now I have all of these people who are sort of monitoring me and yeah, you sort of internalize that idea. And after that, I just continued. I got into a fight at school. Now it was my fault because I was on probation and it was assault. I would go to juvenile hall again. And then it sort of escalated to the point where I felt like I was against. It was me against the community or sort of the authorities. And I had other friends that felt the same way. We started robbing houses, uh, cars, started selling drugs, doing all of the things sort of that you do to get money. And yeah, and then it got worse and worse. I went to boys' ranches, juvenile hall, and eventually, when I was 19, I got my first prison term.
Mm,
Yeah, for burglary and auto theft and carrying a gun. So it really escalated to the point where I
mm.
was selling drugs and carrying a gun.
Oh,
Yeah.
And then by this time, let's say your first prison term, you're like you're you're probably out of sight in terms of the family. Like you're pretty much you've been convinced that you're the inadequate one, the broken one, the messed up one. You come of age, you're 19 now.
Mhm.
Family's decided, or at least with your dad, did he decide like, okay, we're not we're not gonna have anything to do with you, or what happens with that relationship?
Yeah, looking back at it, there was that, and I think there was a struggle between him and my mom with regard to, she wanted me in the house. He was more like, no, he needs to go. He needs to figure it out on his own. Um, and so because I like when I would the robbing houses was the more serious of the things that I was doing. That's when he sort of said, "You need to leave."
Mm,
And then my mom would be like, You need to come back. Let him come back." But I just left on my own. It was just easier for me to be away, so that I could do all of the things that I was doing.
mm.
So yeah,
So that first prison term, how long was that for?
I was sentenced to 8 years, and I did about 4 years. Yeah.
You do your 4 years, you come out. Are you like, man, I'm gonna try to get a job. I'm gonna try to clean up, or are you back at it again?
Yeah. So when I was sentenced, it was 1993, um, which, if you recall, it's like tough on crime was just ramping up. Three strikes law just passed. I was given two strikes. So when I went to prison, I again it was new to me. I was afraid. Prison's terrifying. But when I got out of prison, after all that sort of ended, I got out of prison. I seemingly straightened up. My brother got me a job. I stayed in that job for 2 years. Was promoted several times, and it seemed like I was doing really well. Again, during this time though, now that I'm an adult and I have a job, and I'm still, doesn't change the fact that there's something wrong with me. Like I was terrified the entire time. Like somebody would come in or come and say, "Hey, we know what's going on. You don't belong here. You need to go." Like
Mm,
literally, I felt like that. You've heard the term imposter syndrome, or
mhm,
um, it. I don't know if everyone experiences that way, but I was constantly in fear that I was going to be found out and that it was all just going to be taken away. Like a
mm,
real feeling, and and from there, after that 2 years, I got offered another job through a friend. Told me this company was going public. You should go work for this company. When I started working there, I was there for actually 7 years and started moving furniture, hanging whiteboards. And I moved all the way to sort of a manager level position where I was managing the department throughout the Americas. It was a good position, but again, I always felt like they're just going to come in. We had executives, they would come in sometimes to crash our meetings just to see what was going on when we had like staff meetings and stuff. And I would be sitting there in front of my staff with like 12 or 15 people, maybe doing a quarterly report, going over something, and us, one of the executives would walk in, and I'm like, "This is it. The jig is up. He's gonna." I mean, literally, that's how it felt. They'd come in and
wow,
sort of snatch it all from me. I just that level of success didn't make sense to me
mm,
that I was experiencing that.
mm,
So I was always sort of afraid that it was all just going to get taken away.
mm.
Yeah,
And then one day it did.
and one day it did.
Mm,
So 10 years goes by after me getting out of prison, and I had been in a long term relationship for about 7 years with a woman, and she was a great woman. She was a sort of stepmom to my child. We never got married, but he called her mom. Um, and they were really close. And we were a family unit. We had a home. We went on vacations, just a typical life. We lived in Mountain View. It was a beautiful place to live. And when we split, when we split after about 7 years, I took that as validation that there's something wrong with me. Like, see, she found out.
mm,
She knows there's something wrong with me. Everyone else is gonna find out now. And that's from that point when we split up, I started using, I started disconnecting from people. I was a den leader for my son's Cub Scouts. I was a coach. I started disconnecting from all of that. I started using, and within a year and a half, I was back in prison.
wow.
Yeah. And because I had the previous 2 strikes, they were trying to strike me out. So the sentence that I was looking at was 50 to life. Um,
50 to life.
yeah,
Whoa.
50 to life. And I was taken to trial, and it was real. The first trial it was a hung jury. The second trial, they found me guilty, and the DA recommended that I get sentenced to 50 to life.
Whoa.
Yeah. So the sentence that I ended up with, because I had stayed out so long, because I had been involved in the community, the judge gave me the bare minimum. They actually struck one of my strikes so that I wasn't going to be struck out. But the minimum that he can give me was 24 years. And so I was
Mm.
sentenced to 24 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
And you did
I did just under 13 years out
13.
of 24. And I want to say it was in my 11th year, a lot of laws started changing in California. And one of the laws was around mandatory minimums, how they were found to be unconstitutional, and that they wanted to give discretion back to the judges and the DAs to say, if they see fit, they can sentence you to less. It's not mandatory that you get these long sentences. So around my 11th year, I was given sort of a packet that said, "Hey, fill this out. Tell us what you've been doing because you're going to go. We're going to review you to see if you're fit for resentencing." And this went out to all of the people who had been sentenced under mandatory minimum laws. And I was they really only pulled people out that were doing things that were in school, not getting in trouble, not getting write ups. And I had gotten at this point I had gotten several associate's degrees already. I was in a dog program. I
dog
hadn't,
for like dog training.
yes, I was training dogs for veterans and first responders with PTSD. I'd started a newspaper. I had just done a lot of things that sort of set me apart from someone who was for someone for resentencing. And so when it came time, I filled out this packet. You have to do some extensive work on like your write an apology letter and an insight statement and all of these things that the DA can read and say, okay, is this guy really ready? Like,
Mm-hmm.
has he been doing the work? And fortunately, I had been in a group called GRIP, and it's Guiding Rage into Power. And through them, I had already started doing all of that stuff. I had already written an apology letter. I had already written an insight statement. I had already done these things. So I had that already. So when I got that packet, I just kind of polished it up a little bit and sent it to the DA. And it took about a year and a half. But the DA, she read my packet. She thought that I was fit to be sentenced, and I actually went back to court via Zoom with the same DA and the same judge. And the DA was standing in front of me like, this is the same person who's trying to give me 50 to life, telling the judge that she thinks that I'm ready to get out. Yeah.
What
So
year did you get out?
in 2023.
Oh,
So this month, I want to say it's this week. It's a 2-year anniversary that I've
hey,
actually been
welcome
out.
home.
Well, thank you.
Welcome home. This is great to have you. And I've had the pleasure of having you as a student for a year now almost. And, just seeing your work and your intellect, it's wonderful to have you in the community as someone that's looking at research on, you've been doing research on sort of housing insecure folks and then you're working in the community helping folks that are sobering up and we're going to talk a little bit about your service that you do, but I just want to acknowledge all that you've been through and really recognize that cycle that we've just discussed, right? And the cycle begins with like, and we're talking about intergenerational trauma and sort of Pop's not being in a good place. He's
Mm,
coming from war. He's, stuck on alcoholism. You're messing up as a kid. He's not knowing how to discipline you. He's harsh with you. He convinces you that you're broken. You start taking out that pain on the world, on yourself. You start using substance that gets you into trouble. You end up in prison. You come out. You end up there again, and you're facing life.
mm,
And so just recognizing that cycle and then what you've done to break that cycle. And I want to talk a little bit about breaking some of that trauma, but I just want to honor your courage and what you went through is unfortunately not uncommon. Studies show that intergenerational trauma is a real and powerful force. According to a 2020 article in the Lancet Psychiatry, children of parents who experience trauma, especially trauma that goes untreated, are 4 times more likely to suffer from PTSD, anxiety, or depression. And when that trauma includes substance abuse or violence, the risks multiply. There's another study from the Journal of Family Psychology found that over 60% of individuals who experienced childhood abuse had a parents who also experienced that abuse. So this is a cycle we need to try to break in our society. Just yesterday, I was in Santa Ana, California, working with middle school kids,
Mm.
and every single one of them had a story about how they have witnessed violence in their household. And one little kid talked about being beaten so bad and cut by his mom that he ended up getting put in foster care. And so that violence is very real out there in different communities. So I want to ask you, how did you begin to realize that the pain you were carrying wasn't just yours, but something that got passed down to you?
Mm. Uh, well, like I said, my father, he sort of kept everything in. So I had never even thought about what he went through as a child. Never crossed my mind until that second term in prison. Um, my mom had a conversation with me. Mind you, I'm like about to turn 40, and my mom had a conversation with me, and I started talking to her about the beatings and everything else. And again, she really didn't even know that that was happening. But when I told her about that, um, she she sort of revealed to me that my father had gone through some serious trauma when he was younger, and that he was abused um, by his stepfather, and he'd get beaten. His stepfather was an alcoholic, would make him go out and collect cans for alcohol, like so that they can pay for alcohol. And so he had a really rough childhood, but he ran away from home when he was 15 from his father. He pointed a gun at his father or his stepfather and said, "If you ever touch me or my mom again, I'm going to shoot you."
Mm.
And he ran away. That was the last time he was at home. When he turned 17, he went to Vietnam. So while he was in Vietnam, after he met my mom, um, maybe a year, maybe a year or less before I was born, his mom was murdered,
Whoa.
and she was murdered by his stepdad.
Mm.
He shot her in the face with a shotgun, and she was dead. Um, and so hearing this, I was shocked in so many ways because I didn't. Now I'm looking at my father in a different way. This person went through some way more than anything that I had ever gone through, and um, it's just hard, like trying to grieve what he went through, but at the same time, sort of um, deal with my own stuff.
Mm.
And I realized, like what really happened was is as I'm thinking about this and trying to think about what he went through. At the same time, I'm starting to get this, like there's nothing wrong with me. Like there's never been anything wrong with me. It was his stuff that he kind of put on me. His fear of him not being a good father, him not being able to raise me right, caused him to do all the things. The only thing he knew was um, he was abused. That's how he raised me. That's how he was disciplined me or try to get me to go the right way is by abusing me. Um, so learning about his trauma, um, that was the point where I started to sort of feel like there isn't anything wrong with me. But at the same time, it's kind of like now what do I do?
Mm.
Like who even am I? Like what? There's nothing wrong with me. I've been doing all of this performance the whole time, and how do I reframe my life and sort of move forward? And it was really difficult to do. Sort of, even though I'd sort of forgiven him, um, and at the same time, I'm trying to sort of deal with this new reality of mine.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah. Man, just hearing this is powerful. Just like, his own mom, right, gets murdered by his stepdad, and now he has all this unresolved, trauma. Um, and then he's trying to raise kids. So now you're seeing kind of, what he went through, and you're realizing like, wait, it was never me. I wasn't the problem. So changing that identity, but I gotta say, there's a lot of people out there that it's hard for them to change their identity, right? When you know, you could tell them 100 times, it's not you. It's not, um, you're not the one that's broken, or you're not a rotten apple. A lot of kids I work with, they'll say, "Hey, Mister, I'm a rotten apple." I'm like, "Nah, you're not a rotten apple. You're just you're just an apple that got put in a messed up environment, and it's trying to get to you, but you're still solid, and you can make it through in life. But you gotta believe that you're not a rotten apple. At your
Mhm.
core, you're still good and solid and sweet and amazing and can contribute to the world." And some kids will believe me, and some kids won't. And some people I know that you ran into, right, in your journey, they'll be like, "Yeah, I'm not a rotten apple, right? I can change." You mentioned that program you were in, the grip program.
Mhm.
Is that where you started to pick up the skills to forgive and to process some of that, the rage that you call?
Yes, absolutely. GRIP stands for Guiding Rage into Power. And interestingly enough, it was 2022. Um, when was COVID? 2022?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was 2022. Just before COVID started, I had joined that group, and it's it's a program that's been around in the prison system. It's hard to get into. They usually only let lifers in there, and I was fortunate enough to get into the group, and they're tribes. So when you join, you get assigned to a tribe. Our tribe was tribe 738, and 738 stood for, and it's interesting because we collectively as a group, 30 men, we write down, they ask us to write down the amount of time it took from when we sort of flashed before we committed our crime. So that space the amount of time that it takes for you to say, okay, I'm something happens and I go commit this crime. And usually it's seconds, maybe a minute. But collectively, we all write down how many seconds it was, and 30 men, and we write that down, and then we also write down how much time did we get for that amount of for that short amount of time to make that decision. And usually, I think it was ours ended up being like 2.5 minutes collectively between 30 men. Those seconds added up to 2.5 minutes. But the 738 stands for the amount of collective time that we have spent in prison, which between 30 men was 738 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 2.5 minutes of that moment of rage
Hmm.
that leads you to commit the crime is collectively spent by these 30 men,
Hmm.
and then they end up all being collectively sentenced to
Yes.
738.
38 years. And it wasn't what we've been sentenced to, it's the time that we've already done. Many of
Oh,
these men are lifers and still have decades to do.
oh, that's powerful.
Yeah. So this group grip, they I wish I could remember all four pillars, but really it's the main tools that you're given are learning to develop emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and committing to not doing harm. And with those, and they sort of teach you it's interesting. One of the first things they teach you how to do in there, and it's sort of you don't really understand it when you first get into the group. They teach you how to grieve. So you
Mm,
go through being able to grieve because they understand that we've all been traumatized and a lot of it's unresolved and that we haven't grieved properly and that we need to learn how to grieve. And so you learn how to grieve, and then you're sort of going through this mindfulness meditation, and this is a year long program. So it's really intense. It's 52 weeks, and not a lot of programs are like that. We meet, in smaller groups every week, and then every weekend or every once a month we meet like during the weekend. For the whole weekend, we do a workshop,
Mm.
and so yeah, it's really intense, but it takes you through that journey, and really it gets you to understand the harm that you've done, to really admit to it.
All right, great. So you were telling me a little bit about your defense story you had and how you had to learn to change that defense story into an accountability story.
Yes. So so even though I had before I got into grip, I learned about my father, and I was, in school getting degrees. I wasn't getting in trouble. I still had this story just because of the shame of what I had done. Um, I had carjacked a woman. It it wasn't like I just walked up to her and told her to give me her car. It was violent. I punched her. I took her car. And I had never really um, taken responsibility for that. I had
Mm.
always I the story was always the same. Yeah, I hurt her and I took her car, but it was like we were using drugs together, and she was just as awful person and a drug addict. And so through grip, we learned that when you deny your and you deny and don't take accountability for the harm that you've done, you are recommitting that harm.
Mm.
You Every single day that I had told that story, I had basically hurt her again, over and over and over
Mm.
again. And when you hear that I'm still doing this to this person, you it and you really want to take accountability, um, it hits you different, because before you just thought I just wasn't telling anybody, it wasn't hurting anyone, big deal. I'm here in prison, I'm doing my time. But you realize, I'm still committing harm. And so to sort of come out of that, you need to be accountable. And so grip I credit grip with that. They really helped us walk us toward being able to um, say what we did in an honest way and be accountable for what we did.
Mm.
And everyone in that group, all 30 men, they all came to terms. I can't tell you how many people that I had heard different stories before, and then after we were in grip, I heard the real story of what they had done. Tears, and you see these men like coming to grips with what they've done, but it's freeing because now they don't carry this burden anymore. And that's sort of the genius of grip is you wonder why at the beginning we learned how to grieve. It's so that we can deal with taking on being accountable for what we did, because when you really take account for the harm that you've done, it's devastating,
Mm.
because then you put yourself into your victim's position and you're like, how did I do this to her? Now she lives every day afraid to get into her car. How does she raise her children? All of these things, and you're thinking about all of that, and it's devastating. And
Mm.
and to be able to grieve through that and like be kind to yourself and say, this is something you did. This isn't who you are. This is just what you've done.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. That's powerful. I mean, that awareness is huge. And I want to bring in the science again because you're talking about this incredible program that helped you kind of reflect, build emotional intelligence, right? And build accountability. Um, you know, Healing is possible. Research from Trauma, Violence, and Abuse, the journal, shows that trauma can be disrupted through intentional practices like therapy, mindfulness, storytelling, creating new supportive relationships, something you've been talking about. These interventions can reduce trauma symptoms by up to 45% in formerly incarcerated populations. And we know that trauma, one of the ways to deal with it too, is to make sure that the stories we're telling are the right stories in terms of who we are, where we're going, where we come from.
Mm.
Additional research supports this. A 2021 study in Frontiers in Psychology found that mindfulness based cognitive therapy reduced PTSD symptoms by 50% in trauma exposed populations, especially paired with group support. So, that group is such a powerful experience. Um, what were some of the practices now you're out here, right? I mean, just you mentioned, man, 2 years out after all this time you did, right? Um, Day to day, you run into adversities. What practices have you brought with you in terms of like maintaining a calm, finding that inner peace, grounding yourself, even when you face adversity out here?
Um, one of the tools that we were sort of given in grip was is called Q-tip. They use these acronyms to sort of help you to remember easily. And it's quit taking it personal.
Mm, that's a good
And
one.
yes,
Quit taking it
it's
personal.
life changing for me. I took everything personal. I thought everything was about me, like all of the things that and like you were mentioning earlier, like storytelling, how important it is. I had told myself stories about what everyone else thought of me. Somebody would cut me off. Oh, this guy thinks I'm a punk. He thinks he can just cut me off. Road rage. You know, somebody bumps into me. Oh, this guy thinks he can bump me. He thinks I'm. And every single time something would happen, I would tell me myself stories about these people, and I took everything personal.
Mm.
But once you realize, like everybody's in their own, they don't care about you. I mean, in that way, whatever they're going through. If someone's late and they cut you off, it's an accident. It's because they didn't see you. Somebody bumps into you. It's just an accident. Somebody's looking at you. Maybe they like your hair or whatever. And once you learn that, or once you start to understand that it really isn't about you, the things that people do and say, and you stop taking things personal, you just sort of you just have a new paradigm. It's just not the same as before. The stories are different. I tell myself different stories now about people. And that other stuff still comes up. Like when I'm at UCSB, my first quarter there was rough. Like I was kind of like a fish out of water, being on a prison yard, and that wasn't even that scary to me. My second time around, and going to UCSB with all of these kids, that was terrifying. It was awful. And so my first quarter, I seriously considered like this isn't for me.
What's an example of the environment just feeling like, man, this is not for me?
So I went to a transfer edge um, program like midway through summer just to get ready. I thought it'd be a good idea to get ready for UCSB. It helped transfer students sort of acclimate themselves to life on campus. And so I took that, and we met at a park nearby for our first meeting. And all these kids there, and I can't tell the difference between like a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old anymore at my age. Like it's hard. So they all look like children to me.
And these are 18, 19, 20 year
Yeah.
olds.
Yeah. I think there was one person there, one or two people there that were my age, that were like, not even my age, I'm sorry, like 26 and maybe 35. I'm 51. So yeah, I still didn't feel connected to those folks. And to have the added piece of sort of my background. So we get together and they're playing these games. Let's all get together and we're going to tell two truths and a lie, or we're going to, and you're just like, what am I doing here? These kids and they're wearing like, some of the girls are wearing bikini tops, and you come from a prison yard where people are wearing baggy clothes and everybody's tattooed. And now I'm here at a park with kids playing two truths and a lie, and just trying to fit in. And again, that imposter syndrome comes up. I don't belong here. Like, what am I doing here? But again, it's stories you're telling yourself, because the kids are great at UCSB. I'm blown away every day by how, even if people find out, like I don't hide my story. And I work with an organization called Underground Scholars. I put my story out there a lot in talks to classes. These kids are great. They're welcoming. They want to know more. They tell me about their family, or maybe someone who's been incarcerated that they know, and it just feels it. I feel more connected, and I've begun to find people, and I think that's been sort of the biggest turning point for me is finding people that I can connect with. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so
That's powerful. I mean, Yeah, one of my graduate students, his dad was in and out of prison growing up, and uh, you know, unfortunately, he's still caught up in that world, and you know, he's always needed. He's younger, so he's always needed kind of that connection with others that have gone through it, or are impacted in that way. So for you to be there, and he's not the only one. I got undergrads who grew up with parents in prison. I got this one undergrad. She was in your class, where her mom would take her in stolen cars,
Mm.
and she would sit like joyride with her mom, but she's a toddler joyriding with her
Oh,
mom in
jeez.
stolen cars. So they need to be around people that they're like, "Hey, you've been through this? Oh, guess what? I've been through it, or my parents, or this." And then those connections that we can see light out of the darkness that we've been through in life. That's so important for our
Mm.
students to see role models and people that are around. So I'm glad you stuck to it, man. I'm glad you stuck
Yeah,
to
me
it.
too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Conversation's been so powerful just all around, just thinking of the ways in which you've made peace. And one of the things I wanted to kind of start to conclude with is to ask you about making peace with your father. I know that that's kind of how we started. We talked about this cycle of passing intergenerational trauma down, and at the end of the day, like if your pops are here right now, what's something you would tell them?
Um, I'd tell him I forgive him,
Mm,
that I don't hold any grudges
mm,
against him, and that I understand. You
mm,
know, I think understanding and empathy is really what set me free
mm,
um, from that feeling that I was defective,
mm,
and to understand sort of that he never got to do that. He never got to forgive. He never got to talk. He still to this day hasn't said those words to me that my mom was murdered.
mm.
Like, and now he has Alzheimer's and
Wow.
he's, forgetting things. And it's a blessing and a curse, you know. Yeah, I think I would just tell him that I understand. I wish that he could have learned the same forgiveness
Mm,
toward the person that did that to his mom, because I think it would have helped him to understand that the person that murdered his mother, what kind of trauma did that person go through?
mm.
And not to forgive him, but to understand it. You're able to sort of realize there was nothing wrong with me. And I think my father grew up all his life, 75 years now, like feeling like there's something wrong
Yeah,
with him, and that he hasn't been doing things right. And
yeah. We forgive others not necessarily because they deserve to be forgiven, but because we deserve inner peace. And that's an important message that we got to send out there. And the other piece that you're teaching me about, Greg, that I haven't really thought about is this idea that we got people out there that are hurting. And when they come to hurt us, sometimes it's hard to see through their eyes or walk in their shoes because they're the ones that cause the damage.
yeah.
Why would I want to do that? But in many ways, you're encouraging that because they're saying, hey, man, like we got to rehumanize. And it reminds me of it is a concept in research, rehumanization, where we're learning to see the humanity in those who hurt us without forgetting the pain. In the Journal of Interpersonal Violence, researchers found that forgiveness and compassion based practices led to greater reductions in anger and depression than even standard therapy, uh, especially for men healing from paternal abuse. It's a theme, right? A lot of us go through that. I mean, I didn't have a father around, but I had a stepfather, and on and off, and just seeing that kind of abuse in others as well. So let's talk about masculinity a little bit. Society often teaches us that to be a man is to be tough. You talk about that when you're kind of coming up as a teenager, to not show pain. How has your definition of manhood changed over the years, especially connected to this idea that you're saying, hey, man, there was a moment when I realized, like, hey, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, in terms of me being a defective, maybe I've made mistakes,
Mhm.
but there's nothing wrong with me in terms of being rotten at my core. So once you realize that, what kind of manhood were you able to shape for yourself?
Um, So yeah, I sort of grew up in the belief system that man can't cry, he doesn't show emotion. Um, you need to be the breadwinner. You need to sort of be able to take care of your family. So that was kind of another component of not when I spiraled, sort of not being able to do those things anymore. That played into that shame played into sort of my drug use and other stuff. But
Mm,
um, yeah, I did, and I stuck to those belief systems. I didn't cry. I did what I needed to do to make money, whether it was stealing or robbing, because that's what a man does. You need to be able to provide and take care of yourself. Um, and I didn't really lean on anybody for help. And I learned that from my father. My father didn't, he used alcohol. He didn't ask for help. He never talked about his problems. And yeah, I've learned more and more as I get older. I think I've even heard it from you, put in a much better way, that you really need people.
mhm,
You really need people, and you really need to lean on people, and you need to be unafraid of sort of um, putting out there what kind of help you need. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that have changed with me is sort of asking for help when I need it,
mm,
um, and staying connected to people. Before I would disconnect. If I was going through something, I would disconnect from everyone, and that's a telltale sign that I'm going down the wrong path. It's happened throughout my life. Whenever I'm really, really spiraling, it's me disconnecting from people. And I don't do that anymore. I stay
mm.
connected. I call my mom all the time. I'm trying to build a network of people that I can support and that can support me. Um, and so I think that's one of the biggest things that have really helped me is being open and vulnerable to help, but also at the same time that's kind of translated into me wanting to help other people because that's just another way to sort of stay connected, is
Mm.
to share my experiences and to listen to people and understand what they're going through. Um, and so that's kind of led me into the work that I'm doing now with,
Yeah.
yeah.
So to be a man is to um, create a wolf pack. We think, oh, I'm a lone wolf and I'm gonna survive on my own. I survived on my own. I fended for myself, and that's the old logic.
Mhm.
That's the sort of um, you know logic that's gonna get you in trouble. That's the logic that's gonna put you in a hole. But to be part of a wolf pack, and you could be the leader sometimes, but you let others be leaders too. To be part of that wolf pack is to create an environment where you don't have to carry the burden of the world on your shoulders every single day. Because now you can reach out to someone. Hey, I'm dealing with this. Can you help? Oh no, I can't. Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna call someone else that I know that might be. Hey, can you help me out? Yeah, I got you. We were classmates, um, and I can help you. I'll reach out to so and so, and now we're connected. But if we take too much pride in being lone wolves, we end up, as my buddy Love Jefferson, who was on the podcast as well, as he would say, the lone wolf goes into the forest and dies.
Mm,
So he always taught me
mm,
we got to create a wolf pack.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
All right, Greg. So I know there's a lot of folks coming back home. They've been incarcerated. What's some advice that you got for folks that are coming back, trying to figure out life on the outside? You know, where there's employment, school, prosperity in life.
Um, well, I would say it was a shock to my system getting out. I didn't know that I was getting out, honestly, for a very long time. I shouldn't have been out for another 7 or 8 years. So when I was released, I had a I had set a goal for myself to get my bachelor's degree. And when I got out, I said, "This is what I'm going to do." And even though it was a struggle at times going to community college and not having a job while I was going to school so that I could finish this, I would say really stick to the goals that you make. But more importantly, I think finding something that you can um, do that adds value to the fact that you've spent all of this time away? How do you get value out of losing 13 years? I think the best way to get value out of that is to um, help people, help
Mm,
people who have gone through the same thing, um, to show them there's a way out, um, and you provide those people with hope. Um, I work with homeless people. I work with in transitional housing, sobering center, um, and I found that it's just a way to really sort of use all of that 13 years that I lost in a way that can now add value to other people's lives.
mm,
Um, and if you have goals, go after them. And you just never know where it takes you. I'm at, my plan was just to get my bachelor's degree. Really, I'll be able to get a good job after that. I'll be able to make more money. I got to save for retirement. I'm older. But being at UCSB, I've realized, um, in great part to you, that I'm learning about research now, and my mind is blown. It's opening me up to all of these different avenues for being an advocate and an activist, and doing research around things that I care about and that I want to change and that I've experienced, and doing research that'll actually drive policy change.
mm,
And I would not have come to that realization had I not continued just to go after the initial goal of getting my bachelor's degree.
mm.
So I think just trying to find a way to use your experience to help others, and continue just to go after your goals, I think.
That's powerful. So before we close, I want to celebrate something incredible. Greg, like you mentioned, you're not just healing, you're thriving. You're now a college student at a top university, UC Santa Barbara. That's a huge accomplishment, especially given everything you've been through. Tell us about that journey. What motivated you to go back to school? How did you get there?
Well, I actually started going back to school in prison because I was tutoring people on getting their GED, and realized, hey, I'm actually good at school. And that motivated me to sort of, I always thought school was never for me. And just that made me feel like, oh, I can do this. This is something that I can do. I've always been told that I can't, or that I don't belong there. And yeah, it's through that I kind of realized that it's something that I can do. And now that I'm here, I feel like I belong here,
Hmm.
you know?
That's powerful there. Just seeing yourself, that redefinition of your identity. It's another thing you've taught me. It's like, hey, I've been taught growing up that I'm broken and that I'm flawed. But now that I've discovered I'm not broken and flawed, what do I do with myself? And you're starting to find out the answer to that. That's the journey you're on. It's powerful to see you go through that journey. Where you're like, hey, man, I got something to contribute. My pops, I got love for him, but he was wrong.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, studies from the American Educational Research Journal show that formerly incarcerated students who pursue higher education experience a 58% decrease in recidivism and a major increase in long term employment outcomes. Education is liberation. I know you know that, Greg.
Mm.
You're living proof of that. And you're not stopping there, man. You're helping people, as you mentioned. They're struggling with addiction, housing insecurity, and you're there to give back. It's just knowing that that's something that's important to you is pretty powerful. Appreciate you being here today, and to our listeners, thank you for being on Sueños to Success today. Thank you, Greg, for coming out here and inspiring us all to continue regardless of what adversities we face.
Well, thank you. It was an honor, Art, really.